Welcome to Puck Talks. Yes, it's my honor to introduce my big brother, Mike Mugno. He's not a guy you'll recognize from social media, but he might know more Ranger history than anyone on planet Earth. Mike, we got to get a life update from Mr. Michael Mugno.
It is an absolute pleasure to be back on. We were just saying before, I don't think I've been on Puck Talk since I was probably last you heard me, I was probably 17, about to graduate high school. And here I am. I am just finishing up my first year of my PhD at the University of Delaware. I have a bachelor's from Penn State. I have a master's from the University of Tennessee. I am now getting a doctorate. And the New York Rangers still have not won the Stanley Cup in that time. So, yeah,
He blinded
that
me
is the
with
life
the
update.
science. Yes, the life update for Bike. Steve-O, you actually have a life update too. You're close to curtains, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna be graduating. I know you guys know how that feels. It's just a crazy time, but crazy times call for more crazy things, and we got a lot of crazy things that happened last night to talk about. So let's do it. Let's talk some puck. Mike, I gotta say, it's great to have you back on. I think probably
I'm
like
so happy to be back.
8 years ago that you've been
I
on.
know it's
For
been
those of
way
you
too long.
listening, the OGs, we used to have Mike on as Mike used to have a segment, Mike's Minute Recap, Mike's goaltender analysis. Mike was our goaltender analysis.
Mhm.
So let's do it. Let's talk some puck, boys.
Oh well, listen, if we're gonna talk about goaltending, I we'll get into Igor later. We will get into Igor.
I know it seems like Steve Alcat kind of, he must have heard what we were doing here to change
He
things
stole my
up.
job. I mean
Yeah,
that's simply he just stole my job. That's what I was born and bred to just go on there and talk about goaltending and random New York Rangers from like 1955, and he stole my job.
Mike's Minute Recap actually very popular. When we had the
It
OG
was.
Puck Talk website, for some reason we had like 22,000 views a month. This was pre like podcast world before like every famous person, Henrik Lundqvist had the
Had a pod.
Adonis, even Tony
Also,
D'Angelo.
hold on. Whoa.
Oh,
Speaking of Hank, how about last night? He pulls up, sitting in the MSG crowd in a three-piece Italian suit. He's him. Like he is better than Jesus and Muhammad combined. He is him.
listen, Mike's already striking out. We got him making religious references on air. I think to I mean to start though, we could talk about Igor to start, but I do really want to talk about let's talk about Vinny Gumbats. He had DiVincenzo the other night hit the game winner,
Ooh.
and Vinny. I mean that was a it was funny. I saw AJ Castiglia tweeted today about the Brad Richards goal. That was very eerily similar. And it, all game, I was talking to you guys, that was very 2012, 2015 S type of game that had that feel. I feel like with the sweep with Washington, that's not what it felt like. I feel it's last night was truly grit grind. There weren't many like I mean, the Lafreniere goal was sick. But other than that, it was really grit grind, especially Kreider game tire, double overtime goal. Last time we saw more than one OT, game one of 22, which was also a circus of a game. So phenomenal win. They're up 2-0 in the series. They haven't lost a game. First time they've done that since 94. All the clairvoyance with the 94 Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reference. I know there's got to be one person out there that's watched that show before. I want to know what you guys thought. Because I know we'll talk about Cecil, what's that guy's name? Cecil
Cecil
Dillon,
Dillon. Cease.
random figure number 10 in Ranger history. Steve-O, let's break down the thoughts here, kid.
Yeah, listen, I could just be me, but this team seems different. It has a different feel to it. I mean, we've seen it time and a time again. And I think the stat on it, I don't recall the specific stat that they put on the broadcast last night, but it was like the Rangers were like 20 something and like six when entering the third down. I mean, every time the resilience to this team, Vinny T has definitely been one of, if not the top dog. Panarin's been one of them, even though Panarin a little bit of a quiet night last night. But I guess, listen, when you win, that's okay.
I
Um,
thought Fox and Panarin were jawing though all game. I
They
haven't
were.
seen that type of swag from them maybe ever. Like I don't think I've ever seen them get involved in the chirp game outside of like the Oshie hit.
I love how gritty. I love how gritty Panarin has been this playoffs. I mean, he's just like Fox. I think we saw it before, but Panarin, man, he just when he was giving it to Oshie, then like the national TV camera zooms in on him and he's cursing at the Canes. I mean, not that I didn't know that Panarin was a dog, but I don't think we've seen it this much from him.
Not in a blue shirt.
No.
That just goes to show you how far he's come. We know last year he was held quiet. He was held to the OV treatment, and he was very disappointed with himself. And that just goes to show you how much he's come. He's come a long day. How about Will Cooley? I've been very impressed with Will Cooley. On a physical level and definitely offensively. I mean, he's had a little bit of a pop here, trying to break free on a couple of rushes, something we haven't really seen in the regular season. So we could sit here all day and round through the whole lineup. I think everybody's performed. But I was kind of shocked last night that the number one star of the game was not Igor, because last night was all about Igor. I mean, we could talk about Vinny. He's been a dog. But Igor was the one that really took me over the top. Mike, our goaltending guy, I'll pitch it over to you because Igor was just incredible. 116 shot attempts by Carolina. And by the end of the game, I mean, 90 plus minutes, Igor did not look tired at all at the end of the game. I mean, it was just fantastic performance by him.
No. One word, square. He was square to the puck on every single play. I mean, even when you had like some of the Canes guys in front of the net, I think that a lot of the Rangers, even, of course, Kreider, especially on the penalty kill, guys down low like Trouba, Goodrow were, getting the guys out of the way. So Shesterkin was basically seeing everything all game. Now, and I guess that goes to the point that I was going to make that, goaltending's not 100% on the goalie. You need to have your defensemen to step up and do their job in order for you to do your job. They need to take those guys away so you can attend solely to the puck and the guy who has the puck. And the Rangers did that in spades for Igor last night. Even all the way through overtime, you would think that those guys were going to get tired. They weren't really going to try to be physical. And yet, even guys like Rempe were just pushing the Canes out of the crease and letting Igor see all the shots. Now, when it comes to one-on-one stuff, that's when you can blame the goalie. That's when the goalie is, that's when you can blame the goalie on things. And Igor he did his job. He looked like vintage Lundqvist last night. Just the way that he was making his saves. I mean, there were very few that he really had to really stretch out and make that last minute play. I thought he shored up and he had like a 9.4 save percentage last night. I really want to know what his save percentage is for the playoffs because he's been lights out.
He's had a 930. He had a 930 or 929 in 22. And I believe coming into last night, he had a 929 as well. Very similar, like eerily similar. And this is a player that for 82 games, Steve and I debated all year, not to start Jonathan Quick, but where's his game at? There were a few Rangers that were like that. With that, I wanted to also mention the flyby screens. Orlov's goal specifically, Gensel's goal, when Miller couldn't tie up the stick. Those are plays like you just mentioned, Mike, where if they're not tying sticks up, if they're getting these flyby screens, that's the only way you're going to beat a goalie of his caliber. And you look at the other side and the flip of the coin, the Rangers were getting that on the other end, on the attack. On Loft's goal, screened. Anderson screened. Kreider's goal, lost sight of the puck. There was too many guys in front of the net, not enough guys to tie him up. The Rangers were doing an exceptional job creating that on the attack, but also nullifying that. But two of the first goals, going into the first intermission, you give up two and they're both on flyby screens. I truly believe that's the only way you're going to beat Igor Shesterkin this postseason. And,
100%.
For you guys also, I know Steve-O mentioned it too. The two saves on the final power play, they came in 2-on-1 on two penalty kills, square. I mean, the Shea opportunity, he was right there. Like, he's been right there in terms of puck tracking. He's had a 79 save performance, a 54 save performance. That's already more 50-plus save performances than any blue shirt in history. And with that, Mike, I also wanted to toss to you the Cecil Dillon stat. I mean, as Steve-O mentioned, Vincent Trocheck is the number one star for the double overtime goal. I think that was shocking for how well Igor had performed. He was really the spine for this team, net out presence. but Vincent Trocheck just tied a record that was set in 1933. Any background on that?
Oh, 100%. Cease, as they used to call him. Like I lived back then. Like I would know. I think the last person to watch him play was probably Stan Fischler. I mean, let's be for real. But he was one of those OG blue shirts that he was there from the 32 Cup run, won the Cup in 33, and was during the 37 Cup run as well. He is one of the very few Rangers to lead the team in scoring 3 seasons in a row.
Oh, I got the other ones.
Okay, all right, listen. All right,
let's go for it. Boucher, Esposito, Gretzky. Is Mess on that list? I don't think he is.
Mess is not on that list.
It's an odd list.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the other one.
You're missing 2. Bathgate and Gretzky.
I got Gretzky.
Oh, did you get Gretzky? Oh, my bad.
I got Wayne.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's an exclusive club. And he was one of those guys that Lester Patrick, and before this, Chives, you tried to steal this from me, but Lester Patrick, the Saints, the Holy Ranger, called him the most complete hockey player that he had ever seen in his life. And he was playing with guys like Brian Hextall, who one of the most underrated players in, I mean, that whole era of Rangers hockey is completely underrated. 28, they win the Cup. 29, they go to the Cup. 32, they go to the Cup. 33, they win the Cup. 37, they go to the Cup. 40, they win the Cup. I'm pretty sure 39, they also went to the Cup. I could be wrong on that. And they made the semifinals almost every single year of their existence up until World War II. And then the Nazis ruined that for us. So,
well, and I mean, 1940, he also left the team and went to Detroit.
Detroit.
So,
yep.
Now, here's one thing.
That much, that poor bastard.
The thing that stuck out to me was Lester Patrick's quote, because I think all year we've talked about Trocheck, and for the last 2 seasons, but the first thing Mike said last night, Ryan Strom's not putting that home. And I don't think, also aside from that, jokes aside, I don't think he has the presence Trocheck has. And Steve-O, you talked about it all year, the value of Trocheck. He's signed to a $5.6 million contract. We thought maybe the term might be a little long for a 30-year-old guy. He's become a cornerstone of this team. Like at this point, to me, he's at the same level as all the other players. I thought last season he was like a 1B to a Kreider's advantage, had that impact. Man, this postseason, he's really bringing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting there after tonight or last night going, I got to go out and get his jersey now. I mean, he's just been incredible. Really quick, I want to talk about the biggest choke of last night. I want to get your opinion on this, both of you. It wasn't anything from our game. It wasn't Dallas being up 3-0 and losing to Colorado, which was nuts. It was ESPN cutting to the Colorado game with a minute left in regulation. I mean, when that happens, I felt my soul leave my body. I mean, you got Panarin coming up ice. We got a little bit of a rush, 50 seconds left in regulation. ESPN dodged a major bullet. They are so lucky that a goal wasn't scored there. I got to get a feel of what you guys were thinking during that last minute.
Yeah, I mean, I've been largely unimpressed, I think, by the audio coming out of the Garden, all around, actually, for every series. So, listen, I think it's a good flagship program to be on for the sport to grow, like for the league to grow. There's more people ever watching. Obviously, we all know this. Your phone's ringing from people you never expect most nights. In the same respect, Mike and I always talk about, I've never really watched the Knicks, so it's the same feeling, kind of going both ways. But then again, the NBA has ESPN, like, talk about chokehold, like every show they talk about it. This is hockey's first time. I think the saving grace is Steve Levy, Mess. I loved Weeks on the Desk last night. But, again, there's a few things, obviously, that stand out. I think we got to touch upon, which I know maybe we'll talk about a little bit later. The draft lottery was also a little strange, that show. So, yeah, I mean, obviously you're losing your mind because you're sitting there wondering what's happening. You're like, they just cut away. But as unfavorable as the crew is that's covering the Rangers series, that's not on them. That's like whoever did it was definitely fired.
And don't get me started on Sean McDonough. Do not get me started on Sean McDonough. That guy,
I actually
listen,
like Sean McDonough.
oh, Steve-O, you're killing me over here. I didn't like him calling college football. And I was like, you know what? I'll give him a chance. Maybe after his first year, maybe he'll get into it. I just, going from Doc, who made hockey sound like
That's
poetry,
true.
to him going like, "Hey, scores!" Like, dude, what? Come on,
Yes.
like, yeah.
Now, something I noticed too, when they cut back, which I also wanted to talk about because I think this is important moving forward in the series. You're up 2-0 in the series. Power play was, I mean, on fire game one. It could not be stopped. Their special teams dominant. They killed every penalty. Now, coming into this game, not only, listen, I don't love the whistles, Kelly Sutherland on the game, but a lot of penalties. And not only that, they come back from that whatever the Heidi game type of incident that happened, and they struggled on that power play going into overtime. I was unimpressed with the Rangers' play down the stretch in the third, especially on the power play. Granted, they come up with the overtime goal. I thought it was a little bit of a gimme call, but in terms of the Rangers' play, I thought in overtime they dug in. Right, that's what happens if you don't score one in like 10 seconds. You'll have those games that are like no one wants to give up an opportunity, so it's extreme grind. It's like slap hockey. At the end of the day, come up with the goal, but moving forward, 11 forwards played. Oh, look at that. Moving forward. With Rempe playing, I think it was like 4:53 of ice time. And I love his impact. I mean, he came into the game immediately. The Garden starts chanting his name. But game 3, you're playing in Carolina on the road. I want to know your guys' thoughts, especially playing in their building, how important it is to either have Rempe in the lineup or not.
Flat out, I listen. You guys might have a different take than I have, but I completely changed. I love Rempe. I love him. He excites me. I think he's got to be taken out of the lineup. I mean, 90 plus. We're calling him across a 90-minute game here, and he's only going to play 4.5 minutes. And it's because overtime. He's not seeing any minutes in overtime. That's very much clear. Now, I think since we're up in the series, I think it might be okay, and I think you might see Rempe stay in the lineup. But if Carolina comes back here, and if we struggle in Carolina, if this series ever gets tied, or even knock on wood, if we advance and we're behind in the series, I think you either turn Hito might be a little bit of a stretch, but Chives, your guy, Hot Broad, I'll take him back in the lineup. I think he will give you more of an impact than Rempe of just having somebody. It's like having a player getting injured, and you're playing down one player. Yes, his impact is big, but it's just 4 minutes, and when you got aspirations for a cup. And he excites me. I don't hate him. I love the guy. I love the kid. It's just 4 minutes, especially when you went to a double overtime game. It's a little tough for me. Now again, a little different now that we're up in the series 2-0. But again, you got to expect Carolina to come back strong after that, especially coming back home. Their season is on the line here in Game 3.
I concur. I mean, I think, like you mentioned, you're playing it. I think they're going to play with way more juice in their own building. They came into last night's game 4-15 on the road in the last 3 postseasons. They were swept in the Eastern Conference Final last year. And for the Rangers, can you really play 11 forwards at the point where you played a double OT game, you're getting on the charter, you're now in Carolina, and you're playing them in their building? Their season's going to be on the line. Desperation out there. Legs feed the wolves. Mike, in terms of Rempe, do you think they bring in 22?
See, I'm torn because I'm of the mentality of, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that they're playing so well even with him in the lineup. I mean, there were a lot of people going into this playoffs that were saying that Rempe could take away from the Rangers, that he's going to eat up ice time from other guys. Real hockey fans knew that was not true. That's just the idiots on Twitter. But when you really comes down to it, I mean, only 4 minutes of ice time. You want to give it to another guy, like you're saying, like Brodzinski. Here's how I think of it. He's a young enough player that you can sit him and it's not going to break his confidence. I don't think.
I think at this point that's true. I mean, the kid, he's
Right.
fought in 5 big tilts, caused the line brawl.
Mhm.
He scored a playoff goal to open the series against the Caps. Like, I agree. In terms of
Right.
confidence, I think that's a good point, though. You're not going to hurt his confidence, and he might be a key player down the stretch. We're talking, this is some summer convo, but listen, money's tight, right? Like, we know that with the cornerstone pieces. You might need this kid, in a year or two down the line, and it's going to
Right.
be important to manage that as well. But I like that point about confidence.
Yeah. And also, I mean, think about it. The kid fought Matt Martin literally milliseconds into his NHL career. Then the next night, he's causing chaos with the Devils. Then the next night, he's fighting with the Flyers. I mean, you're not going to break his confidence. But here's what I was going to say is that if you take him out of the lineup, it's not going to break his confidence. And you need to match up with Carolina's fourth line because they don't have rookies like, a rookie like Rempe that they're only going to play for 4 minutes. Those are guys that are going to play like 8 to 10 minutes a game, and you want to have those matchups. So I think it wouldn't hurt if you left him in the lineup. You also don't know what you're going to get with Brodzinski going into the playoffs. You have no idea. The guy's kind of been sitting out for a while. Rust versus rest. I know you can get into that argument if you want, but I guess to me, it's you don't lose in any situation. It's just what's going to create the maximum out of whatever guy that you're going to, keep in that position.
Now, here's something that I do like, though. I like the rotation. I really have, I think Laviolette did a great job of finding the right guys to double shift. I thought Wenberg actually looked great double shifting. I loved some of the combinations. You saw like VC Kreider, Goodrow. Wenberg was in that mix too. You saw Trocheck double shifting as well with those types of guys. I like the fluency this team has. Weeks brought up chemistry last night with more in the lines of Aho, with how Gensel has come and played with Svechnikov and Aho, 2 players he's never played with, clearly having seamless transition because he found a way to always kill the Rangers. But with that, I do like the way the Rangers have managed the 11 forwards and the double shift. But it's more a question. It's kind of like a moral outlook question. Is this what you want for the rest of the postseason? And I think they're going to learn and adjust, and they've played well so far. But now you're entering game 3 of a series that we know they're going to bring their hardest game. Now, you mentioned Brodzinski. I think even with Brodzinski sitting, we've seen the contributions from players all year that have come in, like a Louis Domingue. Like, he came from the AHL, played wonderfully in the Rangers system. And granted, like, the system, people think of it like a math equation. It's not that easy. It's more like the gray of art. It's like, it worked, and there's reasons why, but there's also reasons that he brought to the table outside of all that, even like a Will Cooley, as you mentioned at the top of the pod, Steve-O. So I think they've done a good job rotating the lineup. With the lineup rotation, though, I think it might hurt them, especially hurt the legs. You swept the series. You were off a few days. Now you're up 2-0 against a team that, frankly, I thought they might take one at MSG, especially that game, too. That was a huge win in that sense.
That's a massive one.
Steve-O, I know you brought up Phil Hedl. Hedl's skating. So is Blake Wheeler. I personally don't think he's going to come back, and I know it's not like you're a medically cleared guy, like a doctor, but do you see Phil Hedl coming in at this point, or do you think it's more of a confidence thing like Arthur Staples said and more of like a team building aspect to have him practicing?
I agree with Mike said. If it's not broke, you don't need to fix it. And I do. My prediction will probably stand. I think they're going to roll Rempe out both games in Carolina. It might be – it depends what happens in Carolina, again, because if you're coming out to Carolina, I think all you got to do is win one game. Of course, you'd love to take
Split
both
the road.
in Carolina.
Mhm.
But, I mean, there's such a – I don't see this team being swept at home. This is such a good team. I mean, when you take a look at it. So I think if it's not broke, you don't have to fix it. I think the conversation, and I brought it up to you earlier. I shot you that message over. I'm thinking I love Rempe. I want him in there. But the truth of the matter is, if you're not going to play him and you're not confident having him in there in a tie game, let's say game 3 is close, and we're coming close, 2-2 in the third, Rempe's not getting any ice time out there. So it shortens the lineup. I think one of our strongest points to our team, like Mike mentioned, was our depth. I think we are up and down the lineup, just so fundamentally strong. But I think they're gonna stick with Rempe. Mike, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And also what you're talking about with the depth going up and down the lineup. Carolina that's what we've heard about Carolina for the past what? So when did they break on the scene? 2019. That's what we've heard of every single year since then. Is like they don't have any superstars, but they have the depth. And I think that the difference maker here between New York and Carolina, maybe this is a little bit meta of where you're going with this, Steve, is, but we have X factors like Artemi Panarin.
Igor
Yeah,
Shesterkin.
I was gonna say Igor is a better goalie. Now, don't get me wrong, Freddie Anderson is wildly underrated. I have absolutely no idea why Toronto ran him out of town. That was absolutely not his fault. Their defense was ass.
I disagree with that, but go ahead.
Okay, but the Rangers just have a little bit of an edge, so that's why the Rempe swap for Brzezinski, Blake Wheeler. I don't know if I would mind Blake Wheeler coming back in the lineup in that spot. I don't think he should take Rostovic's spot up on the first line.
Well, here's the question, and you want to talk meta? Here's something we really should be talking about. Would you be comfortable being proactive or reactive? Because I think that sets a precedent for how Laviolette and the coaching staff is going to approach decisions when the team loses, and that's important. We saw in 2014 how that went. Carcillo, with his suspension, JT Miller got some time on that playoff run, and Jesper Fast. So I think it's like, do you want the coaching staff to be proactive with their decision-making or reactive? Nothing we say on this pod right now, ain't going to change nothing. But I think it does change how fans are going to digest that information. Do you want to see Blake Wheeler and Johnny Brodzinski go into the lineup in Game 4, maybe after a heartbreaker in Game 3? Or do you want them to, you're riding high, you're 6-0, don't change it? It sounds like you guys are a little more digging your feet in the sand. I would be a little more comfortable seeing the versatility of the team because I don't think changing one guy is going to change much. And that goes along with the X factors. Igor Shesterkin is the series. He is the series. Bar none, no doubt, period. You brought up Panarin. He is an X factor. I thought Panarin played really well last night.
Oh, when he broke in overtime, oh my God.
But I also found they found a way to tighten things up a little more against that line. I know Loft scored the 2 goals, but I think as the game progressed, Panarin got nullified. I feel like that was his best chance in the second, third, and overtime periods. We're talking 4 periods of hockey there. So no bash on him. I think he's been phenomenal this postseason. But with that said, I think Igor's the series. I'd love to see the versatility of the team. You guys seem like you're dug in, though. So sounds basically, like the majority of Puck Talk wants reactive.
Yeah, you know what? I think to me, I trust this coaching staff. This is the first coaching staff, I think, ever as a Ranger fan that I put 100% trust. They have shown me time and time again, and I know there are Ranger fans that nitpick here and there, but their ability to adapt in game, in series. You saw when the Caps came out in Game 1, all they did was they played tight checking defense and they tried to smother the Rangers. What did the Rangers do? Flipped it on them, and then they smothered the Caps. Ovi did nothing. Oshie barely did anything. Their guys, Dylan Strome was useless. Now Carolina, we see them flip with Carolina. Carolina comes up with a hard man, like a man pressure, hard forecheck. The Rangers match that. The Rangers come out with the harder forecheck. So I think the coaching staff's ability to adapt has shown me that whatever decision they make with, the depth, I'm okay with whatever the decision is, honestly.
And this is not Gerard Gallant, Dryden Hunt over Kako in 22. I'll tell you this, though. I've said this on the pod before. I liked Quinn. I thought a lot was against him. I did like Gallant. I think
AV.
Yeah, AV. Listen, you can't knock him either. He's like the ultimate show up to your team and bring him to the cup. Laviolette has that syndrome too. as they mentioned, I think he's the most teams have clubs brought to a Stanley Cup playoffs or something at least, or I think it's 6. So I agree though. That's also a good point, Mike. In terms of I'd like to see some versatility because I also think a guy like Blake Wheeler, I don't think you're going to sit a guy that earned the minutes. That's also another factor. Like I don't think this is a situation where Lafreniere is not playing great. He's your former first overall pick, and now you're putting Blake Wheeler in who struggled this season, to put it simply. So I do trust the coaching staff in that sense. And we're also seeing the adjustment. I want to talk about Trouba briefly because of the hit. Marty Necas had a response to that. Of course, it was, aiming for the head. Listen, whatever you think of it, I do think the staff moving Trouba down with Gustafsson was a big move. And I know Steve-O likes Gustafsson's game. I like the way they pair together, and I like the way Miller and Schneider have played.
Yeah, Mike, you were talking about the morons on Ranger Twitter. I mean, all the people on Rangers Twitter, not even just Rangers Twitter, just people, just NHL guys, total. I mean, they had a big problem with the Troopers hit, if you want to call it a hit. It wasn't even a hit. I mean, I was talk about the Trooper train coming in full effect
God,
there.
he looked like a rocket, just horizontal across the
People were
cap.
saying he should be ejected. He should have been ejected. He should have been suspended. I mean, no, that was not dirty at all. I mean,
He didn't do anything.
exactly. Come on. And then who was it? Nature's trying to sell it there. I mean, come on.
Maybe listen. Maybe Necas has grown into his own. Like I feel like he's turning into like a Phil Heedle type of guy for their team. I think to me, it's either 3 things. He wanted to get the team fired up a little bit. You're reading the paper, you're down 2-0 headed into game 3. You're reading online.
He wanted the penalty. That's what he wanted.
Oh, definitely. And I also think, part of it too could be how it was taken. Like, there are a lot of times in the locker room, a guy says something and continues speaking, and it's like clipped to that. And then it seems like he said to the personnel that asked him the question, like, oh, aiming for the head. They could have phrased the question, and that's how he responded to begin his statement, and that's what's released. So I don't know 100%, but I will say this. Speaking of wanting penalties, Steve-O, another great point. We're killing it this episode, boys. Penalty kill. A lot of it's come down to some of these penalties. I have not loved the officiating in this series. I feel like at times they let the boys play, and then times there's soft calls. I think the Rangers benefited from, I wouldn't say a soft call, but definitely, something that I wouldn't expect in double overtime. Where's your standing on that? Because I know we talked about it with round 1.
I'm right with you. I don't think the officiating has been great. It's been very bipolar. I mean, how about that call on the icing call that we had in overtime? The puck didn't even. We brought the puck into our zone. It didn't even leave the zone. It wasn't even close. I think it was Barclay Goodrow was the one that kept it in, and they called an icing. It was so stupid. I think it was the end. At the end of the first overtime, which transitioned to the second overtime. But I was frustrated with Trouba a lot because I do have to say that the calls that I saw with Trouba, those were no brainers. The trips and the high stick.
The trip in OT was bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what was going on with him. I mean, he's got to stay out of the box. When you have a team in Carolina that's trailing, especially now going forward in the series, what's happened has happened. You can't give this team momentum, especially at home. We have to stay out of the box there. Their power play has been atrocious. Our penalty kill has been amazing, but it's only a matter of time before Jake Gensel, Necas, Jarvis start cooking and wake up. So again, Trouba, we'll move past it. Horrible game. His giveaway led to the Gensel goal. We got to move past it. We just got to stay out of the box. There's no other way to say it.
All right.
No,
Mike, what were you saying, brother?
No, I was just gonna say I completely agree with you, Steve-O. I mean, listen, I personally, I'm in Trouba's camp. I love Trouba. I love his game, and I think he's really brought it this series. I mean, not that he didn't really do a whole lot in the Cap series, but I feel like Trouba has been incredibly noticeable. I would say on par with his performance against the Penguins in 22. That's how good he's been. But again, just like that series, the penalties got to stop, man. But listen, when he plays that hard edge kind of game, and when you have a reputation, refs are going to be looking for that. So, yeah, but he's just got to clean it up. Thank God our penalty kill is as good as it is, but you don't want that too often.
Yeah, they definitely. I thought, the penalty kill they've had that cushion to lean on, and players like Truba and Lindgren, more of the gritty guys, Barkley, Goodrow. It's incredible to me because skill guys, the regular season, they play the skill game. Ice shrinks, they're still able to make things happen and turn it up against that. It's so funny to me, like the guys that can just turn up the shot blocks, the hits. That's Lindgren, Truba, Goodrow right there. I thought Jimmy Vesey's been more on the quiet side, but I thought he played that style against Washington. With that, we brought up a lot of names the entirety of this episode. Who's the X factors for Game 3 for you guys?
I'll start us off. Vincent Trocheck. And I'm going to get, maybe this will surprise some people, but he was terrible on faceoffs yesterday. And game 1, he was so efficient on faceoffs, which shocked me because you don't really see quick jumps like that. Game 1, he was awesome. Game 2, he couldn't win a faceoff. I mean, he was losing 80% of the draws. When we turned it around in overtime, which is why I think we ended up taking that game. But I mean, the first 3 periods of that game, we were horrible. I mean, not one player on our team could win faceoffs. So if we can't win a faceoff as we transition here to Game 3, it is going to be a hard task, especially in Carolina. We want to carry this momentum. We want to keep riding this wave. But if we can't win a faceoff, especially in the defensive zone, we're going to struggle.
I would say X factor is the third line. Kako, Cooley, they have to just keep rolling with what they've been doing. Wenberg, they have to just be shutting Carolina down because listen, those Carolina guys, they are going to bring it in Game 3 at home. In Raleigh, that arena gets so loud, that barn gets loud. Listen, our superstar is going to probably pull up. Yes, I think that the X factors are going to continue being X factors. But when Carolina is going to have a little extra step, like we're at home, we got this crowd behind us. Come on, boys, we have to get it. We have to get this one. We can't be down 3-0. You want Kako, Cooley, Wenberg to just completely shut them down. I think the fourth line could definitely do it too. However, the makeup of the fourth line is after our entire Rempe discussion. But that third line just has to bring 100% of their game. And hell, hopefully they can contribute too. I mean, I feel like all 3 of those guys have been just so close. They've had so many chances of scoring. If you can get one of them to add that on top of the best of their game, Game 3 is going to be a hell of a time.
I feel like that's actually the case also for Carolina's side of the puck. I think Jordan Stahl's line has also come through in some moments where they clamp down. It has that same feeling, and I think those lines are huge X factors. I'm sticking with my guns. Mika Zibanejad, Alexis Lafreniere. I said before, Igor's the headline, but I think Lafreniere, 2-goal game. He only had 2 goals coming in. I say only, but bust, number 1. At the same night as the draft lottery, by the way. We'll get to that in a moment, but Laf, I think he's key because I think if he and Zibanejad are on, it's curtains. I think this team has a really legitimate chance at the Cup. But also building on Steve-O, I don't think Trocheck is necessarily an X factor. I think delivering the blow in Game 2, I thought for him was for him specifically showcased really what he is, which is a cornerstone player now for this team. But he went 13 for 34 in the dot, so that's a good eye, Steve-O. Catching that. And again, I think Igor Shesterkin, I think the goaltending overall, because Frederik Andersen has a below 900 save percentage right now in the series, not looking great.
Wild.
And I think the Kreider game tire, losing sight of that, granted, mine NHL goalie now. And I know this is the best in the world. The difference you can see between the backups, the starters in the NHL, and as you mentioned, Mike, kind of the fringe elite guy like Andersen, I think age is catching up to him. And I do agree a little bit. I don't agree with Steve on when they ran him out of town in Toronto a few years back, because that was when he was in his prime. I do think the injuries, I think things are catching up with him. Now he's 34. He's definitely aged compared to our guy Igor. And Igor, for all year that we talked about him, a 54 save performance was not on the bingo card for me last night. So yeah, I'm going to stick with Loft. Mika, I think special teams we already talked about, and number one overall pick doing all that. The draft lottery was an interesting show last night. Not a single move. And I mean, we talk about the ping pong ball. We saw that live. The last two shows were very interesting. I thought Bedard was going to be a Shark. Ends up in Chicago. Now Macklin Celebrini tears it up. Doesn't win the national championship. And they have him in studio for the interview. I know Steve-O was talking about that before we got on. Really interesting show. I actually didn't see the whole thing. Steve-O, did you watch the whole thing?
I didn't watch it live, but I watched the whole thing after. Anyone listening could watch it. It's like 4 minutes. It was just a doozy. Like I was no excitement around it. The transitions were so weird. They would introduce and like when you go from the bottom half, you know who the bottom half's going to be. But then they go 5 picks and they cut back to the interview. They'd ask a very cheesy question. They would randomly cut back, do another 5 questions. Just the timing was just so weird. And there was no excitement. Like there was no moves. Like the last couple years, there was a couple like, whoa. This year was just like, it was very solidified. I mean, we knew the order, way before it was done. There was not that much excitement.
Oh, from the leak, from the Bucci leak, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, we saw with Kako, the Rangers went up. That was exciting. We saw the ping pong ball. I thought even for how awkward those live shows were, I thought there was a little more excitement. I mean, not even for the Rangers, but the fact that they showed, wearing masks, of course, like mid-COVID. I think it was like August 10th, Chaz, with them dates. They put the balls in.
Why do you have this in your head, Chaz? Why?
I remember it. The ball spinning around. You saw the logos on them. Like there was some excitement factor when the Rangers moved up to Kako the year before. I feel like the last 2 years, I mean, I don't know if there was movement last year, but I'm glad I didn't sit down and watch because I can't imagine sitting there for that long watching Daly lift up the card and it's the logo of the team that's literally right on the board behind him to number 1. Like just,
what it's for? It's just to squeeze a little bit out of the worst teams' fan bases. I mean, let's be for real. The only time, listen, like the two of you guys, a diehard Ranger fan, diehard hockey fan. I think the only draft lotteries I ever watched was the Loft one and the Kako one. Like I have never had any interest in watching this because the Rangers, first off, the Rangers were never in it, honestly, because they always made the playoffs. But even when they were bad, it was kind of like I just kind of watched it half, kind of, all right, maybe we'll get a good pick. Okay, great. We jumped up and got Kako. And then the Lafreniere one, of course, we were like, did that just happen? But honestly, I mean, if nothing's happening and you're not a fan of any of these teams, why would you watch this? I mean, first off, the logo, the font looked like it came off straight off of Microsoft Word. Like, did they put any effort into this? And honestly, another thing, I totally forgot that it was in the middle of the spring. So they didn't even advertise it. So I don't know, just top to bottom, just poor job. If you're a Sharks fan, congratulations. You got an absolute game breaker in Celebrini. Kid was dynamite in college, but why do we care? Why do we care?
Well, listen, I mean, we got a lot to care about. Game 3 will be, I'm sure at the point you're listening to this pod tonight, huge game in Raleigh on the road in their building to either go up 3-0 or the series gets real close. And you know what? Last point I want to make. It's really big the Rangers didn't lose last night. You do not want your first loss in the playoffs to be a double overtime heartbreaker on home ice going into their building. I think that was also, I mean, that's not anything the players they're going to control. their mental approach. And we've seen time and time again the Rangers have had resilient teams the last decade. Then again, you don't want to be in that position, especially on a long run. I think it was huge they won that game on all accounts. By the way, another small little stat to add to Steve-O's little take there with Vinny. I don't think he's an X factor, but the more you look at the stats, he led the team in ice time over Adam Fox last night. 35 minutes, Fox 33. So that's it for me. But for you guys, what are you looking forward to in Carolina?
I put the little asterisk next to Vinny. He represents, like, I threw his name out there. You know, he's on my mind. But I put that out there as like our team as a whole, like everybody up and down the lineup with faceoffs has gotta improve, because it wasn't just Vinny. I mean, everybody was losing draws. Two guys that you gotta look for, I think, is Seth Jarvis and Natchez. These are the two guys that could really do damage. And you got to watch them. And I'm also looking at Gensel. You know, we cannot allow Gensel and Aho to get going. Gensel is crazy, man. He is always in the area that burns us every single time. And I think if we could lock Gensel down, we take that card out of Sebastian Aho's hand. He's gonna have their first line's really gonna struggle. And I do agree with you, Chaz. I think the Stoll line has been playing quite well. They've gotten in there. They've gotten good chances. They just haven't found the back of the net yet. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun to watch too.
Mike, you got anything, big dog?
Yeah, biggest thing for me. Well, actually, first off, what I was going to say, which is just hit me. I said before, I think they made the Stanley Cup in 1939. The Rangers did not play in the Stanley Cup final in 1939. They played the Bruins in the semifinal. But no, going into Carolina, I think that listen, I have to be right, okay? I have to make sure that I got my facts right. I don't want to be like Sean McDonough the entirety of last year's playoffs saying and Matt Tkachuk's grandfather, Walt Tkachuk, and they're not even related.
He was in the Rangers. They assembled veterans. They sent in like cameo videos on social media, the Rangers, and one of the dudes that spoke was Walt Tkachuk.
I love that so much. I love it. The dogs. Okay, but going into Carolina, I think the biggest thing is Kuznetsov. What happened to him?
Yeah, what was the scratch? That was bizarre. That was bizarre.
Listen,
and Max Comtois.
I know New York is big time for his favorite vice, but I mean, where did he go?
That's a good point, Steve-O. If this was you and I right now, we totally would have missed that. I mean, healthy scratch. I thought he really played well against the Islanders, and I thought he was noticeable in game one. Maybe not productive, but
no, but Igor made some heavy saves against him. Yeah, I don't know. So does he come back? Does it change their lineup? Does it change their game plan? I don't think it changes the Rangers' game plan at all.
No.
But
listen, these coaches, they're not game planning for specific guys. But with that, I also think it's important. Like, you don't want to. I feel like, especially for the D core, they got to focus on Gensel, like Steve-O said. I think they'll nullify. I have faith they'll nullify Jarvis. You saw with the Kreider penalty in game one, and then Trouba sat him back down. Like, he's not. The Rangers have trees in the back end, and they'll take care of a smaller player. But Gensel just finds those soft spots. Like, Kreider lost him, and Aho's a great playmaker. I mentioned last episode, I don't think he's a game breaker. He had a chance in OT. I was sweating when he cut to the net. I was like,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know.
But you don't want guys that he can dish the puck to. I think Svechnikov is taking some dumb penalties. So I do think those secondary scorers, like Steve-O mentioned, and you mentioned, Kuznetsov, Jarvis, Gensel, they're going to be huge for this team, because I think now the success isn't just on Gensel or coming back into the series. It's not on Svechnikov and Aho. It's going to take the team. So yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait for puck drop, and hopefully we'll be coming back still undefeated on the mic.
Yes, sir.
Mike, we're definitely going to have you back on. This has been a fantastic episode. 8 years in the making of Mike's return.
Thank you, boys. Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure to be back. And you know what's the best part is, You know what, Chives, at the top of the pod, you said this felt like 2012, like the swag era Rangers. But you know what? The swag era Rangers didn't have a guy like Artemi Panarin who could just walk through the entire Carolina team and rip a shot that Freddie Anderson barely saved. And that's why I think we're in good hands this year, boys. We're in good hands.
You heard it there from Mike. We are in good hands. Always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.